and welcome listeners to our podcast. Today I'm with actually same guest as last time, Hazel. Hi Hazel.
Hello, it's good to be back.
Yeah, and we've got a brilliant podcast coming up for you guys. We're actually discussing wicketkeepers here, specifically wicketkeeper batsmen, to bat at number 7 in our Test 11 today. So let's get straight into it. Sarah Taylor retired quite recently. Legend of England women's cricket.
Yeah, I mean, an absolute legend. She's obviously really well known for her role during the Ashes. In 2008, she was one of the England team that retained the Ashes in 2008. And yeah, sadly she's had to retire recently for mental health reasons, but she was Gilchrist described her as the best wicketkeeper in the world, which I think is a pretty good title to have, right?
Especially from Adam Gilchrist, who we are going to be discussing later in the episode.
For sure, yeah.
So just running through her stats here, only 10 tests. Actually, 10 tests, 300 runs with an average of just shy of 20. And 300 test runs. So not such a good test batting record, but what an insane ODI and T20 international record. Yeah, so 126 ODIs, 4,000 runs, with a high score of 147 and an average of 38.
Yeah, I mean, pretty impressive. And I think also it's worth saying that in the women's game there is less tests played. So even though it does seem like a lot less maybe than in the men's game, it is probably partly because of that.
Yeah, right. I'd like to agree with that, if I'm allowed. And
for sure.
And an amazing actual wicketkeeper behind the stumps. 87 ODI catches, 6 run-outs and 51 stumpings.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. And even in her 10 tests, she's got 18 catches and 2 stumpings as well.
So that's 10 dismissals.
Yeah.
20 dismissals.
Yeah, 20 dismissals for 10 tests, which is quite a few for a wicketkeeper, I reckon.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know if you've seen this, but on the ECB recently posted on, I think it was on Instagram, a video of all of her stumpings in that one go. It was really cool. So
really?
That would be watching that.
Yeah. 104 international stumpings, so 51 in the 2020 game, which is amazing. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, I think that's probably everything on Sarah Taylor, right?
Yeah.
Awesome player.
So,
basically.
Women's legend. So now on to a specifically hard-hitting New Zealander, Brent Mccollum.
Dun dun dun.
Obviously, who does not know his IPL 158 for KKR?
Yeah, right.
So, 101 tests, 6,400 runs with his first New Zealanders trip 100, 302, and he averages 38.64.
Yeah, so he's obviously got a huge wealth of experience as well in terms of his batting. I think it's obviously a wicketkeeper has a certain role, but they're not just you don't want them to just be in the other innings. You don't want them to just be sitting around doing nothing. So you need a wicketkeeper to obviously be a great batsman as well.
Yeah, and can I just say, in 101 tests, he's hit 107 sixes, which is more than 1 6 a test.
That's quite rare for a test as well. So
especially in
really
today's game, you get tests players playing more defensively. Maybe a bit less, but I think Cheteshwar Pujara plays a lot more defensively than your average number 3, like Roots, who plays with a bit more flair. So, 260 ODIs and 6,000 ODI runs with a high score of 166, averaging 30. Anything you'd like to say about him?
I mean, there's not much more to say about Brent Mccollum. I think, he's obviously a great batsman, but also has a really good record with his wicket keeping as well. And he's also done some bowling as well, which is pretty cool.
One test wicket with the stats I've got here.
Nice, yeah. So he's done a little bit of bowling. So he's very talented three ways.
Yeah. And I'll let you lead the conversation on a South African wicketkeeper, actually. Mark Boucher, now the coach.
Mark Boucher. So Mark Boucher is obviously now a cricket coach, but he was a cricketer. And he's, regarded as one of the best wicketkeeper batters of all time. And he also holds the record for the most test dismissals by a wicketkeeper. So he got 532 catches and 555 total dismissals. In terms of his batting, so he's played 147 tests and got 5,515 runs with an average of 30.3. So obviously also a strong batter. In terms of, he's got 532 catches, 2 run-outs and 23 stumpings in his career, in his test career. So, obviously a record-breaking wicket-keeper, but also an awesome batter as well.
Yeah, and I would completely agree with that. Also, I know this is mainly a test podcast, but he played 295 ODIs. If I just like to mention that, and 4,685 runs, 86 runs actually, with a high score of 147. Interestingly, his only ODI 100, and looking at this, only 5 test hundreds, 35 test 50s.
Yeah, I don't know where he played in the order usually.
I think he was more middle order.
Yeah, more middle order, okay. Well, I mean, I think that's probably part of it as well, is maybe he didn't bat for as long as maybe some.
Yeah, especially looking at his career dates, he would have had, who actually I think we mentioned in our opening partnership podcast. I'll leave a link in the video description, so go check that one out if you haven't already. He was coming after the Herschel Gibbs and Graham Smith partnership, and then Hashim Amla at number 3. So he maybe would have had to go for it a bit more, play a bit more swashbuckling, because he'd come in against England like 500 for 4 or something. England only. England and England only. So, maybe that's part of the reason why he has less hundreds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, for sure.
Yeah. So our next wicketkeeper, Sri Lankan. I mean, who else could it be but Kumar Sangakkara? 134 tests, 12,400 runs with a high score of 319, and 3,800s, 52 50s, and an average actually of 57.4. Anything that you can say about that, apart from his insane record?
Don't think there's much to say about that. I mean, wow, what an incredible player. And obviously, we're talking mostly about wicketkeepers here, but for someone batting, he'll be batting number 7 on our team. He's pretty good.
Even though he's actually mainly a number 3 batsman in the Sri Lankan, when Sri Lanka dominated with Jayawardene, Jayasuriya, Sangakkara, and we actually discussed him in our number 3 podcast. If you haven't already, check it out. There is a link in the video description, so go click on that and go watch that video. And we didn't pick him, so spoiler, technically we're allowed to use him for this podcast.
Okay, that's good, because I'm a fan of Sangakkara. I also think his wicket-keeping record is pretty good. Kind of as with the other wicket-keepers, he's played a lot more ODIs, but in terms of his test career, he got 182 catches, 4 run-outs and 20 stumpings. So clearly a very capable wicket-keeper as well. I think the thing with maybe Sangakkara is he's more of a batter than a wicket-keeper.
Exactly, and actually, sorry to interrupt you, if I could just highlight that point. I was listening to a Sky Sports vodcast, which are actually up on their YouTube channel. You should go check them out. and I can't remember the exact numbers, but he averaged about 44, 45 wicket keeping, and just over 65, I think, were not wicket keeping. So maybe that's something to consider when you think about it.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's an awesome choice, but I think it is worth thinking about the fact that his batting is probably stronger than his keeping. But yeah, that being said, there's nothing wrong with being a great batter and a less good wicketkeeper because, you know.
Not a less good batsman when they're wicket-keeping.
Yeah, exactly.
And now moving on to someone who's actually the opposite of that, the second and only South African wicket-keeper that we have up on the list. Who could it be but Abe De Villiers?
Of course. So he played... he was named, fun fact about Abe De Villiers, the ICC ODI Player of the Year 3 times during his 15-year career. And his name also featured in Wisden Cricketers of the Decade at the end of 2019. And again, he's an awesome batter as well. So he played 114 tests, and he got 8,765 runs with an average of 50.7, which again, crazy, very impressive batting.
Absolutely. So something that I'd like to highlight is, like I said when I was kind of introducing De Villiers, also on the lockdown vodcast by Sky, was that he actually averaged more with the gloves than without. So, all of his different averages, different things, whatever, averages out to 50.7, and, averaging over 50 is just incredible.
Yeah, that is really impressive. I don't know if I said his wicket-keeping stats, but anyway, his keeping stats are 222 catches, 6 run-out, and 5 stumpings. So,
not many stumpings, interestingly.
Yeah, not as many, but super impressive batter, and obviously also very impressive and safe, very safe pair of hands as well.
Yeah, so also something that I'd also like to highlight is his ODI and IPL career were both incredible, that famous 2016 season with RCB that was actually dominated by Virat Kohli, scoring 913 runs, but, he was a lead role. I think he was actually, him and Kohli, kind of the 2 and 3, were a bit like Livingston and the other Perth Scorchers opener. I can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but they went together, they had an insane strike rate, something like over 300. It was just incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing. I guess,
that's it.
Really
It's just insane.
No, I was just agreeing with you. I don't have anything more to say to that, but yeah, I agree.
Yep, so do I. Now moving on to the Australian wicketkeeper in the list, the one that stuck a dagger in the English hearts with that Perth Ashes 100. Who is it but Adam Gilchrist? Gilly.
Of course. Gilly. So he's obviously still very much involved with the game. He's commentator.
For Fox, I think. Fox.
For Fox, okay.
Yeah, Fox.
His strike rate is among the highest in the history of both ODI and Test cricket. And his century against England at Perth in December 2006 is the 4th fastest century in all Test cricket. And he was the first player to have hit 100 sixes in Test cricket. So
100 sixes in Test cricket?
Yeah, there you go. An awesome player as well. So he played 96 tests and got 5,570 runs with an average of 47.6. So obviously right out there with Sangakkara and De Villiers. His keeping record was also really solid. So he got 379 catches, 4 run-outs, and 37 stumpings in his Test career. So again, super impressive stats.
And also, interestingly, only one Test double 100, because he was a bit like Boucher. He came in when Australia were, 400 for 5. with Ponting, Hayden, Langer, you know, for a bit of his career, Steve Waugh, just smashing it.
Yeah, yeah, that was his job. Was just making. Yeah.
Oh my God! Just looking at his ODI stats, over 1,000 ODI falls.
Wow.
Which is like.
That's a lot. He's also played 287 ODI matches, which is obviously, I think that's probably around what we had for some of the other batters, and so that's kind of even more impressive in that he did that well.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. There's a bit of a theme with these players, isn't there? But we've got a lot of very strong ODI players as well.
Yeah. So I think with especially with the development of short form cricket, it starts to shape players more than ever, and that is exactly what this next and our final cricketer that we're actually going to discuss today has been incredible in all three forms. Actually, who is it but Mahendra Singh Dhoni, MS Dhoni.
Yeah, no, what a fab player as well. He's played 90 matches and scored 4,876 runs.
That's tests for our listeners.
Yeah, sorry, test matches with an average of 38.1. And he's played 350 ODIs, and he's still playing ODIs. So.
Is he? I thought he retired at the end of Cricket World Cup.
Oh, maybe I'm misinformed, but it looks like
I'm pretty sure he's retired.
Okay, sorry about that. My mistake.
Well, I don't know.
But yeah, so an awesome player as well. In terms of test catches, he's got 256, 3 run-outs, and 38 stumpings. So again, really safe pair of hands.
Yep. Oh, and just looking at an interesting fact here. Fun fact, he's the only captain in the history of cricket to win all ICC trophies.
Oh wow, that is a good fact.
Yeah, so and 6 Test hundreds, but he again would have been more swashbuckling in Test cricket because he would have been coming in after for the later part of his Test career, Virat Kohli, Sachin Tendulkar, Sehwag and Gambhir, who we discussed in the opening partnerships video. You should go check that one out. There's a link in the video description, and he just dominated everything. Captain Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely like an awesome player. All the ones we've talked about today are awesome, but yeah, he's a huge star, and one of the kind of well-known figures in the game as well. I think a lot of the players we talked about. I think the thing with wicketkeepers is like they're often kind of the glue of the team, right? They kind of keep everyone positive out in the field. They're kind of at the centre of everything. I think that's important for all wicketkeepers to be, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm just getting it up here just to show how absolutely incredible he is. He's worth, just looking at his net worth here, 89 million British pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
He's doing well.
Doing well, yeah.
Dhoni. And he's apparently, according to Sports Pro in 2012, he's the 60th most marketable athlete in the world. So that would explain a lot. He's a huge icon in India as well. Yeah.
So that brings us to actually the end of discussing them. Now, I've made up my mind over who I'm going to